being discussed at the World Economic Forum is a new disease called Disease X, a hypothetical virus that, if unleashed across the world, could kill more people than COVID-19 as concerns over biological warfare continue to grow. To put that into perspective, COVID so far has killed just about 7 million people. If Disease X were to hit, it could kill over 100 million people. Again, this is hypothetical, but joining us now for more on this and why this is suddenly such a big topic in Davos is Dr. Frank Contessessa. Dr. Frank, great to see you. Good morning. What's this Disease X all about? Is this strictly hypothetical or is this real?
Well, good morning, Rob. That's a really good question. So it's supposed to be a hypothetical. So this is an idea that seems to have arisen within the World Health Organization going back at least a few years, back to 2017 or 2018, maybe even earlier. And they started to say, hey, we should try to have some kind of protocols or preparations in place for some hypothetical severe illness that could become a pandemic at some point. It's just kind of interesting that now the World Health Organization is talking about it. Now the World Economic Forum is talking about it. Right around the same time that we're hearing stories of a new coronavirus out of China that was 100% lethal in the mice that they tested it on. So at some point, I don't know if we can conflate these two issues, but it's a bit of a mysterious issue when you start to look into this Disease X, because nobody seems to, there isn't a real illness, but they're saying, but it's 20 times more deadly than COVID.
Right.
How do they know this? So there aren't really any good answers out there.
Why are we allowing the Chinese to continue to create new COVID viruses that are so deadly? I have no idea. We'll get to that in a moment. Dr. Fauci claimed that COVID came from a pangolin. All right. No pangolin was found. All right. We think now that COVID came from a lab. In fact, most people have thought that for the last 3 years. But do we think that Disease X would come from zoonotic origins from an animal, or do we think it would be created in a lab like COVID-19?
Well, that's a good question. And it really kind of depends on the source of your information. You can get down a pretty deep rabbit hole when you start to look into and research some of this stuff. So on the surface, they'd say, no, we're concerned about some sort of a zoonotic. This new coronavirus supposedly came from a pangolin. Why don't we leave these pangolins alone? Like, as you said, this gain of function research is very dangerous. I really see no benefit. They say, well, we can find new drugs and new treatments if we do this gain of function research. It's just too dangerous to do. The consequences and the margin of error of these things are too small. It's just not worth it. It's like, why do you tell a kid not to play with matches?
Just quickly, Dr. Frank, how does the medical community prepare for something if we don't know what that something is going to be?
Well, that's a good question. I guess that's what they're supposed to be discussing. Might have something in place. Well, they're already talking about, well, can't we have some sort of a vaccine in place? Well, how are you working on a vaccine if we don't know what the disease is?
Exactly. Like, is Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson making a vaccine for a hypothetical virus? Do they want this to happen because it's good for business? I mean, these are all legitimate questions that 3 years ago nobody would be asking. Back to your initial point, the New York Post with an article about this Chinese lab. Again, this time it wasn't the Wuhan Institute of Virology, but they created a new COVID-19 strain that killed 100% of mice. Why is this being allowed, funded, and endorsed?
I agree with you completely. I agree with you completely. I don't see the potential benefits here, and it's just not worth the risk. And again, we're funding this stuff. So no, we should not be messing with these strange viruses and performing gain of function to try to make them deadlier. It's just too darn dangerous.
Yeah, and what if it leaks? Dr. Frank, we'll pick up this conversation soon. Thanks for breaking that down. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. Lots